Okay, so this is a Mandela Effect Ramble about kind of to rooch on with it. It can be very sad. It can be very lonely. It can be very hard once you have life after knowing about the Mandela Effect. Because it's like I've said in my other videos, a lot of people feel like, well, why bother? And what's the point? And you could really say that about anything, right? What is the point? We're just surviving one day to get to the next day. We're just sleeping to get to the next day. We're just whatever. So what is the point, right? And the point is experience, okay? We came here where we're here is. I'm not claiming to know. I think we're actually either in the final program of the real Mother Earth or on some sort of a sentient being or whatever, that the mirrored version that we were practicing on is gone. The air feels different. The trees, everything is just so different to me. The beauty is just even more stunning. But when you find yourself going, what's the point and why bother? Whether you know about the Mandela Effect or just life in general, like it just seems like you're just kind of bobbing along, right? And then you die. And the point is the experience, right? So you're here just to have that experience. So like I said in other videos, I turned 50 last October, and I'm like going, well, what? I mean, I feel the same as I did when I was 12, right? And I'm interested in the same things, really. And, reading and nature and, well, I don't even want to go into the list, but I'm basically the same person. And so things that I experienced at 12 or at any point in between, I bring them up like they happened yesterday. I can taste meals that I've had. I can see places I've been. I can see the leaves on different pine trees. I can remember forests. I've seen bear, moose, lynx, Kauai, the Yucatan, all the places I've been in this version of me. I can see, right? I can hear, I can smell the smells, I can taste the foods. So that's the point of experience, okay? So we've had all these choice points, so millions of them. And then we've experienced that timeline, we've had those experiences. And you gotta guess, like at least 50% of them we didn't like. Maybe 80% of them we were like, ew. Okay, but say that 20% or whatever's left, we prefer. We're like, wow, that's cool. So say we're this giant spider, this giant quantum computer, and we're going in all these directions to find out in this whole world what we like and what we want. And then we're bringing all that data back to source. Okay. So now we're in that time of merging timelines in a time of ascension where we're taking, say there's a million different versions of us. We're taking what we liked, what we preferred. Okay. And that stays with our consciousness as we move to whatever our next experience is, or simulation or video game or whatever. And it's sometimes challenging to not fall into deep depression at, oh my God, right? The sky is like projecting pictures and clouds are glitching and things are changing, not only music and brand names and where we are in the sky, but you can see the stars are in different positions. Places that didn't exist now on maps. And have you checked Washington, D.C. lately? I mean, I don't know, it's been like a month or whatever, but it wasn't Washington, D.C., it's Washington. You really start to feel like you're phony, right? You're fake. And I've studied it my whole life, right? I'm in a simulation. I'm not real. But I don't know if I 100% believed it until the Mandela Effect. And so it can be a little bit surreal to keep going with life. But what I'm trying to express to you here now is to just keep the faith. What we're doing, it's hard. There's a lot of dark night of the souls that go with it as we're integrating all of these different versions of us into this now version of us. Okay? And we're not bringing what we didn't like. We're bringing the lessons so we know, oh, yes, don't touch a hot stove. We don't like that. We don't maybe prefer that. But in other realms, a hot stove isn't going to even burn us. We're not even going to feel it. Like in my dream the other night, I was in water. I didn't even feel, like I felt no temperature difference, right? But in general, we sent out like millions of scouts to find out what we liked about this reality construct and brought that back. Because if you think about it, I mean, I know I chose to experience this, but it's like a board game or like the game of Risk or whatever. Okay, so the way that the military is, like today's news, right? $100 million to Ukraine's army. Okay, we send billions to every country all over while our people in America sleep in the streets. What? So that's a board game. So like, what is it, like Warhammer? Or I know my parents used to play Risk. I don't know all these different things, but I know that there's a whole different set of I just flashed on Legos, even the Lego sets. So there's the farm set, there's the city set, there's the, right? So we picked this construct, which is kind of an industrial military construct, the whole world. And the whole world, we could tell through everything that happened with 2020, they're all coordinated, right? So it's pretty clear that we kind of chose to experience a certain thing because it's so unnatural to me. Military, I mean, even as a kid, I'm like, what? And I knew at 16, I'd researched it, the billions going all around the world for the military. And the Americans' military was the military for the world. And it's all about, and then they know when they're going to create a war or whatever, and their stocks go up, and it's all, and the currency game, it's all this finance and military. I'm like, really? This is what I picked? Like, why didn't I just pick, la 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 la? Anyway, so I'm very much looking forward to getting out of the military-industrial complex, capitalism, Western medicine. The way that this whole society is not natural to me from my home planet. And so the Mandela Effect is getting us closer to peer. Okay? So say I've sent all of these timelines out, all these things, I found what I like. It's kind of a vote. Okay? So I'm like, okay, I like these. So when we get to 51%, on certain things, then all of society has a mass consciousness shift. And that's kind of what we're doing now. So I've noticed the timeline shifts. I can feel timelines magnetizing to me now. So if I'm like, and I start to feel negative thoughts and I'm like, well, this, and I start to think self-defeating things and I start to put myself down and then I go for a walk or whatever. Okay, I might trip. Okay, I might knock my knee into something. Bad news might come in, and then more bad news, and more bad news. But I can feel literally like I'm a magnet walking through this tiny shards of the timelines being the shards of metal, right? And I can just feel them cling to me, like and I'm like, uh-oh. So then demagnetize, right? How do you do that? By changing your thought immediately, right? Or a nap. Just put on a meditation and nap. Whatever you can do to get out of that stream of thought, that stream of consciousness, to stop that magnetic attraction. And I've been seeing it. It's almost slowed down for me. Like I'll have the thoughts and I'll feel negativity and you'll feel stuff. And I can almost like see the timeline, the negativity coming at me like a bug. And I'm like, oh no, right. I can see it now before I'm completely immersed in that timeline, which is kind of cool. So, right now we're doing that for, it's kind of hard to explain. The Mandela Effect's been frustrating for me. I haven't always felt all love and light and positive about it because I don't have a, to move my car up a little bit. So so I get into that self-defeating stuff of like, what the fuck is the point? And who cares? Yeah, I'm confessional here, but it's like, you really get that gut-wrenching pain and feeling of severe abandonment when you realize that there is nobody, right? There's nothing and nobody but you, right? You're alone. And what I mean by that is that you're born alone, you die alone, but you're projecting reality. And so nobody exists, right? So this person doesn't exist, that person doesn't exist, this event doesn't exist, this event doesn't exist, and until I believe it does. And so when I first started getting into the Mandela Effect, I was pretty bummed about, not meaning to be negative here. I mean, I wasn't bummed, but I'm babbling now. Okay, my partner, I would just get freaked out if she would remember something different, because I kept hearing about these partners that were living in a completely different reality, right? Like all of a sudden their partners changed, and if they were mean, they're nice. If they're nice, they're mean. They're good, or all these different things, and they'd have these different memories. And it was a big deal to me because I was afraid of feeling even more isolated and alone and abandoned if my partner didn't remember things the way I remembered them. Now, I'd felt this way before. This was already a thing in my life. So, of like, if I had something happen, like I had a car accident once, my then partner remembered it different than me. And it really bothered me. I had quite a few different things that happened at that time that she remembered different than me. And it bothered me because I think it triggered my childhood stuff or whatever of not being believed, not being heard. I experienced this. I saw this. Why didn't you see it? Why did you not experience this reality the way I did? And this was long before I heard about the Mandela Effect. Now I know, car accident or whatever. Someone right next to you can experience a completely different experience of reality as you. And I kind of didn't know that was possible. Like if you're sitting together or whatever, you both saw the thing. So it was crazy making to me. It felt like gaslighting, and it felt like she was messing with me, and it felt weird. And now I know that that's everywhere, and that's part of the Mandela Effect, the quantum effect. I get it. So, but in the beginning of the Mandela Effect, the first couple of years, I was hypersensitive to that. If my partner would be like, no, I don't necessarily remember that. I'm like, oh no, she's moved. She moved realities. It's not her. It's not the version of her that came with me, which is so cool because now when I talk to her, it's like we move together. Like every time something changes, like a recent one was just it was kind of big for me because I followed Dolores Cannon's stuff for quite a few years, New Earth and the past life regression stuff and the going in and doing all this healing work. And so she had talked about, one of the things she talked about was the background people. And it was a fascinating topic, right? Because it's like, okay, so say 20% of society is real people and 80% is the background people. And they're just kind of programmed to just kind of be part of the set for you to have this experience, to incarnate as a human. Okay, background people. A couple weeks ago, this same person was teaching somebody new about this. And so she's like, oh yeah, do you remember where some of those good videos of Dolores Cannon, the background people? And so I looked and I looked and I looked and I couldn't really find them. And then I started tripping over other people talking about it. And I found out that she was saying and heard her say backdrop people. Well, may not seem like a big difference, but it wasn't a misremembering. Like all of my stuff, I have a photographic memory. I'm not trying to be arrogant with this, but I don't misremember. I play it back, okay? I talk myself into things. There's trauma, there's programs, there's stuff like that. But in general, I knew it was the background people and not the backdrop people. It doesn't even necessarily make sense. And so, and then she's like, oh, good. Like, I thought that too. So we've shifted together. And I think that's because we talk every day. We're in each other's community, not community. We're actually about 4,000 miles apart. We don't see each other physically. But I think because we're in so much communication and that in our energy, I don't know what it is, but I have to be honest, it's a relief to me because the Mandela Effect can be so gaslighting and isolating and alone. People feel like, okay, I'm in a different world. I'm I'm alien, right? I'm new person in a foreign country, but it's my same country and my same place. And everyone around me believes it's the same reality. And I'm like, no, wait, we shifted into another reality. And then I'm crazy, right? And it can be very lonely, very gaslighting, very stressful. So it's really nice to have someone that remembers things the way that you do. It's really, really comforting. And that's what I now hope to do with my talks on the Mandela Effect, because I know how alone you can feel. I know how people, they're like, well, I'm not going to divorce my spouse because they have changed. My kids seem a little different, but you can't like abandon your kids. You can't. What do? Well, you sit in it. And some of them are pretty depressed and pretty freaked out because they feel gaslighted every single day. Even if their spouse is understanding, be like, oh yeah, the Mandela Effect, that's cool. And the trivia part of it, and remember some of it, if they don't believe they shifted, it's kind of crazy making for thinking that you shifted. Because we didn't really necessarily come from a world or a society or learning or programs, whatever they call it, that would say to people that this is even a possibility. Okay, that you can just shift to another reality. And I've witnessed it firsthand, right? So like I said in other videos, my mom did it all the time. Like I know now that that's what it is. But about, was that same year? Later that year, so 2016, I was with a then friend of mine. I say then because she's passed. Really weird way she passed. She's just, she just walked up in the mountains and froze to death. Anyway, that was about a year ago. I didn't mean to, I don't believe in death. I don't, but I just sometimes get sad about things. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, so I'm sitting there at our house, and like I said, this was around 2016 in the fall, and she's really upset about, some lawsuit, just different things going on. And breakfast is happening, so I made some French toast, and so we're getting ready to have French toast, and she's trying to find something to prove something, right? She's trying to find a checkbook, and so she's looking all around. Then she looks in her purse. She's like, I know what's in here. I put it in here, and I'm like, why don't you just sit down and eat, and then we'll look later. She's like, I know what's in here. So I'm there, right? And she takes every single thing out of the purse, dumps the purse, right? I see all the objects. She puts them all back in. Finally convince her to just relax and eat breakfast. We eat breakfast. Breakfast is over. She reaches in the purse, and there's the checkbook. And I saw it. Now, this is one example, right? But, and of course, there's a lot of them. But it's very profound. And that kind of stuff is crazy making, right? Because you feel like you've lost it and you untether. Some people really struggle with this because it's like, especially if someone's there that didn't witness that and they don't believe you. And so that goes back to childhood stuff and ancestral wounds and of not being believed. And that goes back to, molestation trauma, different kinds of verbal and physical violence and abuse that happened when you're a child, that you weren't believed. Right. And that's why I was so excited when the internet came along, right? Because I'm like, and in 2000, when they're like, everything's going to be shut down, I'm like, no way, man. Because now, if an alien lands in the backyard, I can take a video and show everybody immediately, right? We have access to the whole world. It's a gift from the divine, right? That for some reason, they censor us, censor, but they haven't been able to shut down our mass communication internationally. And some people are communicating with other realms. And you just see the new Sasha Stone stuff where they're bouncing signals off of the moon to communicate with life out there. To me, it's obvious. But I used to follow this one woman, just popped into my head, the Yellow Rose of Texas. And she talked about us as we're digital. So we were like, so Earth is like, it was like this straight line, and then it kind of made these, which made sense because we're in a if we're in a computer simulation. Also, just saying things that come to my mind. I remember when I first started stuff on the internet, and I would do blogs, right? And you go HTML or you go compose, okay, like in Blogger and Google. And when I'd put a picture of myself, doing something or some real estate listing or whatever, but my face was most profound to me. So I got a picture of me doing something, and then I want to add like a video or some sort of HTML. So I go from compose to HTML, and I see all the numbers and letters, and it really struck me. This was decades ago now, the internet, kind of in the beginning of it for me, but how my face, me, voila, what I know to be me, is in numbers and letters. We're all digital code, right? So if the picture is, why not the avatar, right? And then I'm trying to think of this Netflix movies. If you've seen the different shows with the stack, so like the stack is the consciousness and it goes like into the neck, and then they have different clones or versions of their body and they just change the stack, like if they get shot or whatever. We're just an avatar, right? But we feel real. And so once we learn to control things like what we eat, our body temperature, what human nature is really capable of, and you've seen people do really profound things, it's all about experiencing. And so be kind to yourself, because this is just an experience. This isn't how it all ends, right? What's going on in the great 2020 thing, which I'm not necessarily going to talk about, because I've had other channels shut down that I've had for decades. This is my decade shutdown accent. Made me forget what I was talking about. Oh, so that stuff's still going on. People are flipping out. There's all these election audits, right? And everything's still kind of happening. This is still part of the Great Awakening, because those of us in the know have known all this stuff for decades upon decades. I mean, elections rigged. Oh no, say it isn't so. I mean, it's always been, right? The corruption, the stuff, and seers, we've always been able to see it. Okay, remote viewing. The military used that. It's always been, okay? And it's so funny when people are like, people that don't believe in aliens. I don't know why I thought of this, but they're like, well, because they've never seen an alien, right? But they have a profound belief in a one true God. If there is one God, which I believe we're all gods, then isn't this God an alien? And if there are angels and archangels, aren't they aliens? Really? And it's funny because we call people from other country aliens, right? When we're all earthlings and we're all human. Well, we're star seeds or whatever. But anyway, so don't get discouraged. Just know that it's an experience. And don't hold on to any past version of yourself or any people or any circumstance. Be in this now moment at peace, best you can, and know that you're here to have this experience. And so love yourself. Be gentle on yourself. Take a day and cry and cry and cry and rest if you need to. But just know that, well, I, for one, get it. I get how isolating and alone and knowing about the Mandela Effect can feel. I get how everything changes. Your plans, what you were going to, like people still out there working on the American dream, right? It's so surreal now watching life go by. And so getting to that point where you can just enjoy it, just watch it and observe. There's no goal. The only definition of success is peace. You're here to experience. You brought in all this crap and programs and stuff. Not crap, okay. You brought in stuff to cleanse, to find a cure, to maybe be that human that could do that. And so no matter how hard it seems what you're going through or what you've been through, you can take comfort in the fact that you're just here to experience it, and there's no right or wrong, and you're a beautiful soul. And when you get to thinking, what's the point? The experience is the point, and finding out what you prefer. And when this life is over, what you prefer and what you love and what you found here on earth that you enjoy, you take with you. You take with you joy. You take with you love. You take with you all things that you prefer, all things that are truly of your highest excitement. So, I noticed the Mandela Effect in 2016 in May. And like I said, I watched every video. I watched timelines. I studied more of the quantum stuff. I really was trying to figure out, okay, I did it. So how do I do it? I know I did it. I'm not going to be gaslighted. I know what I remember. I know. Okay. So I'm like, whoa, right now what? I kind of thought things would be revealed sooner. Like, how eerie, right? So do the doctors know the heart's moved? Do the doctors know the kidneys moved? You have a nurse or someone speaking out here and there. But I remember cryon channeling like the year before that. If you're not familiar with cryon, Kryon, decades been listening to that stuff. It talked about the example that cryon gave was a car. It said, imagine having a car and the car updates itself and the manual automatically updates too. And I was thinking, well, like, what's the point of this? What's the point of talking about this? What's the deal? What's going on with this? And that's what the Mandela Effect is, right? So the car shifts, changes, the manual changes. The Bible scripture that's changed, right? Thousands of them, hundreds of them. I was following them hundreds and hundreds. And then, like I said, then I kind of just stopped because people just got so hateful, and there's so much on it, and they blame the devil, and they blame CERN, and they blame all this evil, which if anyone's doing that, they're taking the power from you, because you created this reality. You created or agreed to have this experience so you could experience it for source, and you are part of source. And so kind of forget where I was headed with that. People do nutty things sometimes around, and I just kind of be like, what? So anyway, just hang in there, be kind to yourself, look for new experiences. Doesn't mean you have to travel, doesn't mean you have to go anywhere. When you change your thoughts every day, you have new experiences, because you have different people that come into your life. You have different things that you go through. And when you have tower moments where it just breaks down everything you thought that was your life, it's really hard to find a silver lining. It's really hard to be okay, and I was always one that had different things with trauma and program connected to feeling stupid, right? Because that relates to my own childhood stuff. And I'll talk about that in another video. But when the Mandela Effect is like, it really triggers some of that stuff, because you don't know the facts anymore, right? So the trivia that you knew, you look it up, it's not like that. It's not mirror, it's not this, it's not lion in the lamp. Nope, it's not this, it's not. And there's tons of them, right? And you're wrong. And they can prove you're wrong. And it's crazy making, because you're right. So I love you. God has blessed you all. I know what you're going through. And I just want to say, just keep looking for experiences. Keep focusing inward. And when emotional pain comes in, don't overstory it in your head. Don't put words to it. Just sit in the energy. Just feel it in your body and sit in it. Let it disperse. Change your thoughts best you can. Find something that you love to do to immerse in. And look for new experiences, new connections, new people. And just keep doing that, because that is the point. The experience is the point. I love you.